Welcome, everybody.
Welcome to the house that Pablo built.
We are in the studio that Pablo built.
Yes.
Anyways.
Yes. Welcome.
Let's get going. School's out in most places.
Out.
Congratulations, everybody.
It is in our district.
Yes, and in many around the country, but I know we have a few weeks. My wife actually has about a week and a half left.
Wow.
She's trying to get through. Trying to
make it.
Yeah.
She'll
get
she
there.
Have open house
Open house is tonight.
Good Lord.
Which is, by the time you hear this, is Wednesday.
It's over.
Yeah.
So we thought we'd apologies if today's episode seems a little disorganized. It's just the end of school year, kind of hectic, frivolity running off into the sunset in the
Pretty
summer.
much like our language here. School's out. The structure and format of this show is out. Just for today.
For today. But we're going to have fun.
Yeah.
So we wanted to tell you a tip in the news. And a tip in the news relates to our previous episode, which was finding a teaching job.
Yeah.
And one of the things we suggested, one of our tips was be ready to move. So
that's right.
Where's this at? Fayetteville?
Fayetteville Schools is doing a little hiring.
In Georgia. So Fayette County.
Beautiful.
You've
Georgia.
been. I've never been.
Love Georgia.
I may go.
Love Georgia.
So there's a news article that we'd like to draw your attention to. We'll put the link in the show notes. And that news article is from thecitizen.com, which says that Fayetteville's hiring 31 new teachers, new teaching positions.
30, like 3-1.
Like 31.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
what?
Good news is
there's a little cha-ching involved there, which
salary.
is nice. It's a bonus.
Yeah, it's over $60,000 for a first-year teacher.
And we're going to get into this a little bit. We don't necessarily get into it for the money.
Yeah.
But a paycheck,
to
good. Live by is a good thing.
That's a healthy
You should be ashamed
salary.
of that. No, absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So if you're interested, it's 30 minutes south of Atlanta. It's also within 4 to 5 hours of each of these locations. Nashville.
Charlotte, North Carolina.
Charleston.
South Carolina. And also Savannah, Georgia. Oh, yeah. Savannah's beautiful.
Yeah.
If you've never been, you got to go, and shout out to anybody who lives in Savannah. I love your city.
Yeah. It's a half day's drive away. So I would suggest if you're in the area and you're looking for a teaching job, at least drive over there and see what it's all about. And if you like it, put in an application.
Yeah, do it. Sometimes it takes that sacrifice, or you're just looking for some new scenery.
Yeah.
Yep. Cool options.
It's there. All right. So we were going to talk this episode related to getting a teaching job or finding a teaching job. We were going to talk about the various paths that you could take once you are in education. So, stories of ourselves. Pablo, did you ever consider being a teacher?
No. Short answer, no.
Short answer, no.
And no. I was trying to think about how softly. No. The answer is no. However.
And why was that? Was it just the disconnect from school you've talked about a few times?
Yeah, there was the disconnect in school. But when we were preparing for the show, I often thought, like, why is that? And I think it comes from just living in the present mostly. And sometimes that's a good thing because you're not thinking of the future, which would mean goals. But I'm also wasn't thinking of the past, thinking of, going over the trials and tribulations of my young life at the time.
Yeah.
I was just living in the present, just wanted to either play basketball or go out with my friends. I knew that even school, I was too young for school. Like, I wasn't mentally prepared to attend university or any school. So that I was living in the present. And so, being a teacher was far from any of my thoughts.
Same here. I finished my college degree in English. I didn't have a plan. I did not. I wasn't like, I'm going to teach English. It literally did not occur to me. When I look back, I'm like, how could you I was getting married like 2 months after graduation. I didn't have a job. Yeah, so I never even thought about it.
And shout out to the two things, to the people that, and students or anybody who just knows they're going to be a teacher.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So cool.
Yeah.
So cool. And I was also, I believe, I could be wrong, but I think it was Pocket Full of Primary's YouTube channel.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken. I was thumbing through her comments, and I can't remember on which of her episodes on her YouTube channel, but there was a lot of kids just saying, is it just me? Or are there other like 11 or 12-year-olds that know they want to be a teacher, and a lot were chiming in.
Yeah.
No, me too. Yes, me. I thought that was so cool. So whatever you're doing, Pocket Full of Primary, keep it going. Pocket Full of Primary is a 4th grade teacher, and her actual, I think, YouTube channel is called Pocket Full of Primary. So go check her out.
It's really cool. She has over 100,000 subscribers, and to know that some of them are children who are looking up to her and going, "That's what I want to be." What a great way to get exposure to teaching.
Obviously, a good role model too.
They
want to keep watching. So, kudos to you.
All right.
I just didn't. How about you? I mean, you talked about it.
Yeah.
We're both here now.
Yeah.
But so what's kind of your role now? Maybe if we're gonna
we talked about in another episode how we got into teaching, but I was listing out the various roles I've had since becoming a teacher. So I spent about 7 years in the classroom. I was a high school English instructor, but I did teach a semester of special ed before that. But then I found myself wanting to have more one-on-one interactions with students, and I was coaching, and I was looking for these places and roles where I could give feedback one-on-one to students. That was very fulfilling to me. And then I saw this job posting, literally, hey, we need adults to work one-on-one with other adults. And I was like, work one-on-one with teachers. I was like, what? How? That's awesome. I want that job. And I was very happy in the classroom, and I loved my students. But I was just like, to work one-on-one with adults, that's awesome. What is that called? And so it was called in California, BTSA, Beginning Teacher Support and Assessment. It's BTSA. It's since been it was kind of an acronym. It was an optional program when I started, and then they made it a requirement to clear your credential. You had to complete the induction program, and I had loved working one-on-one with teachers. So that was the first step beyond teaching in education. And then I know, Pablo, I'm going to shift over to you, but I listed like 10 other titles I've held since then.
Yeah, let me go first because mine is short and sweet. Essentially, when I became a teacher, I was a teacher, and a 6th grade math, science, technology teacher for the most part, 6th, 7th, and 8th. And then a few years back, about 4 or 5 years ago, I think 5 years ago now, I assumed the role of a teacher on special assignment in our innovation department. And so the primary role there was to support teachers in education with education technology. Yep. And now I oversee a few, and we work in the same department, and I oversee some of our TOSAs, the same job that I was in as the education innovation specialist.
And that's teacher on special assignment, if TOSA is unfamiliar.
There's digital coaches, all sorts of different names for the same kind of thing. But the idea is we are leaders in our department. And I want to say this. One of the reasons it took, I was in the classroom for 13 years. There are times when some people know they want to be an administrator. That was never my case. So kudos to you as well. I do, and this is more of just a personal preference, I think, that teachers should spend a little bit more time in the classroom before they make that move. Again, my opinion. But I think you need some experience with parents, with faculty, with your colleagues for 4 or 5 years at least. I think that's a good number. If you're getting out any earlier than that, I'm not so sure you love teaching. I don't know. Yeah. What do you think?
Well said.
I don't know.
I had teachers I talked with when I was a BTSA support provider, and like they would be in their second year, and they're like, I want to be an administrator. And I just couldn't comprehend like how. So that meant the classroom was just a pass-through phase for you, which is okay, but you need that time with teachers as colleagues and students and parents. I think in order to build up, 1, credibility, 2, wisdom that comes only from experience, 3, like a diverse set of kind of knowledge about curricular approaches, and that we all know there's the thing we call the pendulum. Right. Curriculum approaches swing back and forth over time, and
absolutely
if you taught for 2 years and you only use one textbook and no other approaches as you kind of pass through the classroom quickly, then you kind of have a shallow pool to draw from in terms
Right.
of hands-on knowledge about the changes over time. So
Yeah, but in no disrespect though to those
for sure.
teachers or educators who know they want to go off and lead. I think
Yeah.
that's super.
Yeah.
That's so there's kind of like you called it like an equilibrium. There's an ebb and a flow,
Yeah.
and you just got to find that right moment. And sometimes it's just an opportunity.
Yeah.
Maybe you weren't quite ready, and we ourselves recommended the power of yes. So if you're in your 4th year and all of a sudden they see you as a talented leader and potential manager,
Yeah.
and they're saying, hey, can you maybe apply for that assistant principalship? Then you should probably do it. So,
Yeah.
there is just the opportunities in life that you just can't pass
Yeah.
up if that's really what you want to do.
Yeah, that's well said. Well said. So some of the other places I've landed in education, literacy coach, which is one-on-one instructional coaching and small group trainings, things like that. Then I left the school district. So that's a different experience altogether. And we won't talk that much about that, but I've worked in a few capacities outside the school district, coming back inside. One as a consultant and trainer for culturally conscious instruction. And then that's like classroom equity, things like that. And then I also worked as a program improvement consultant. And if you're not familiar with that, if, for example, we had schools in California that were in program improvement status, like their test scores were low repeatedly year over year over year. And so they were required to contract with an outside consultant and get services. And what I did in that role was visit with principals on a monthly basis and walk around the campus and initiate a dialogue about the things that the principal would do to start shifting things in a new direction. It was very open and reflective, but we're often seen as like a threat from the outside. It was a scary, so it was a lot of interesting dynamics, and you had to do a lot to build relationships and trust with people when you're seen as an outsider.
But in context to that, with our topic today, education career pathways,
Yeah.
that's one of them. That's something outside, in private business or in the private business sector that we'll talk about in a little bit.
Yeah, there are consulting jobs out there. So just to whip through the rest of the titles I've held: technology professional development coach, which is kind of like the department we're in now. Virtual school instructor. So I've worked where I only saw my students once a week, and then I met with them one-on-one as a very different independent study type of environment. And then I've supervised an academic English language lab. So our students who are second language learners who are on independent study would come visit me, and we would have conversations to develop their language fluency, because in independent study, when you're alone, it's hard to do that. So that was a unique setting. Staff development for K-12 online learning, program specialist of personalized learning, coordinator of 21st century learning, and actually now director of innovation and instructional support. So
Yeah, man.
it's just it's wild to look back over those and think about all those different parts of the journey. But it also shows how much is out there, and we haven't even really touched on all the areas. So why don't we go that direction?
So maybe more in a broad spectrum of potential career choices are basically teaching.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of like the base, and that's
in the
and that's what we're
classroom.
all about here, New Teacher Talk. But then there's the next logical move is administration.
Sure.
Services like being a psychologist as well, counselor, so on and so forth, working for the government in education, and then in business or being entrepreneurial, or as they call it, edupreneurs.
Edupreneurs.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's
those are kind of
interesting.
the big roundabout.
Interesting government add-on there is international schools.
Sure.
So teaching at like a Department of Defense school.
Interesting.
So that's
Nice.
a potential opportunity to teach in another country, but teach in English and teach usually like sons or daughters of diplomats or service men and women. But I've had friends who have gone abroad, and they are working as administrators or principals in international schools. So that's another connection in terms of where you might work.
What else you got there for
Sure.
other
Oh
very
my gosh.
like breaking down some of these departments?
So when I think of our department, our district, business services, human resources, ed services, technology. So those are kind of some broad departments, but inside those you could have various roles like program specialists, coordinators, directors, assistant superintendents, as well as could be a curriculum specialist or instructional coach role at the district office there. So if you think of like there's a half a dozen different roles and a half a dozen different departments, that's like 30 or 40 different combinations that you could come up with. So for me, I think, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later, the magic is find what you're passionate about, what you love doing, and then look for that path or those opportunities and try to get connected and explore it. I like if you love helping people, for example, I was gonna say in crisis. I don't know if that's the right word, but like human resources does counsel people, and they do help people when they're under stress and in need, and that might be a good role for you. I mean, there's obviously a lot of other things human resources does.
Sure.
Talent management.
Absolutely.
Identifying
super
people.
important.
Yeah.
Very underrated. Bringing the right, the right people for the right job to lead our students. It's huge.
Yeah. And having a passion for that could be a huge blessing and benefit.
And I think we have that in our district right now. We're very lucky to have who we have in that spot.
Yeah. What do you have?
So I wanted to go back to the being an edupreneur or entrepreneur, and it's in social media right now. It's chock full of opportunity, and we see it. Whether you're doing stuff on the side as a teacher, like Teachers Pay Teachers, or you're working your Etsy game, or whatever it is that your passion is that maybe you're doing that on the side. Maybe it's not connected to education. But one of the things, I found an article which I found very curious, the title of it's Why Teachers Make Some of the Best Entrepreneurs. And here's some of the highlights. They do not go into the field for money. And now, while you said, I think Fayette schools are offering $62,000, we don't know what the cost of living is there. It's close to a big city. It might be expensive. Like we're just 30 minutes from Los Angeles. And the county that we live in is super expensive to live in. So while we have a high minimum salary, we also have a high cost of living. So I think on a national scale, I saw somewhere where we're like between 17 and 25 in terms of income to cost of living ratio, if that sounds right. But nonetheless, why teachers make some of the best entrepreneurs? We generally don't go in it for the money. The money is essentially, year by year what you're going to make, which is a solid thing, but you probably aren't going to make within your salary any more than that. You have some opportunities, extra hours and such, but you don't go in for the money. Multitasking is in our DNA as teachers.
Interesting.
Right? Do you believe that? Do you think so?
I mean, there's all sorts of ways that a teacher, like when I go in the classroom, I have classroom management, relationships, interactions with students, but I'm also building curriculum, right? And I also may be coaching. Yeah. And so there's 3 different roles.
They talk about that many hats that we wear. Yeah. Parent, psychologist, the whole 9. Yeah. Like, there's lots of things that we do.
So that can actually build capacity to start and run a business that might work alongside your classroom.
Yeah, and another thing that's perfect for an entrepreneur is we know how to communicate as teachers. We have to. Yeah. I mean, you're probably not a very good teacher if you can't communicate with your kids.
Well said.
It's just true, right? Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't be teaching if you can't communicate with your students, with the parents, the community, with your staff or your colleagues and so on. So that's just truth. Yeah. I mean, you shouldn't be in this area. Yeah. But anyways.
I've heard it said before, a lot of teaching is selling. Is like making something look attractive to the student, because students aren't always going to naturally want to study the subject you're teaching. So our beautifully crafted lesson plans are often scaffolding ways into the topic for students that help it make sense to them. That's sales, that's marketing, and that's communication.
Some people don't believe that, but we're not going to get into that right
now. Right. They just need to sit it and get it.
That's right. Okay.
Another topic. Yeah. Another time.
Let's keep going.
You know what? I have a recommendation of a book, and we want to share it with you. It's called The Actor's Life. surprisingly.
I thought this was about teaching,
A
sir.
survival guide. So
Make that connection.
Jenna Fisher, Pam on The Office, and she's now on a new show. I forget the title. So she wrote a book about how to survive as an actor or actress. And so when I read it over Christmas break,
Cool.
And the surprising thing to me, like I went on right before this podcast and looked at some of the reviews, and the majority of them just echoed what I thought. It was like funny, very honest, brutally truthful.
Cool.
But the thing that I learned the most is she shows all these like hidden things that you don't know about becoming an actor or actress. And it made me realize how little information I had about being a teacher, and how little information I had about the difference between a year 1 teacher and a year 5 and a year 10. Like, I literally knew none of the secrets, and there was no book out there like this, A Teacher's Life, The Survival Guide.
Sure.
Like, if I knew I was going to be a director back then, I might have had some other approaches and other experiences that I sought out. Now, I have the experience I need to do the job, but having that path, I highly recommend reading her book. It's hilarious, and you may know her and you may already be a fan, but it also is very easy to reflect on what types of guides do you have or not have in your current position, and it helps reveal like maybe some things you need. Like they have agents and people that help you find gigs. We don't have that. Like, we've been talking about EdJoin and other sources.
Sure.
But it helps you realize you might need some more support and some more insight and more ideas and resources.
That's a great resource. Love it.
That's
Thanks
hilarious.
for sharing, Wes.
It's hilarious.
It's hilarious. Hey, we've been interacting with some of you, and we'd love to interact with more of you out on the socials.
Yeah.
Pablo and Wes on Twitter, on Instagram, Facebook, or PabloandWes.com, wherever it might be. We love talking to the people. This has been great.
Yeah.
Since we started the podcast, people have been wonderful.
Yes.
Got a couple people that have been just lately been busy talking to us.
So special shout out to Darian, who is at Teach Ms. Tanner.
Yep.
And she's been super on Instagram, and we enjoy her feed.
Yes,
and we
thank
think
you, Darian.
will too. And also, Good Morning Ms. Foster. And so we've been connecting with her, and we enjoy that as well.
Yeah,
so
where's she at? She's in...
I think it's Malaysia.
Okay.
But she was in London. Now she's in Malaysia.
Yes.
And one of the cool things, just to give you an example, is she was talking about kind of total physical response, and she was modeling
TPR?
some of that in video about teaching students English as a second language. So
Yeah,
she
I've
actually
seen,
models
I've
that.
seen some of her Instagram stories. Ms. Foster, you got a lot of energy.
Yeah.
Bouncing around all over the place. It's
Yeah.
awesome. Keep it up. Keep it
Good.
up. I think they're still in school. I think.
Maybe.
I think so.
Yeah. That's it.
We done. We
That's
out.
it.
Hey, so our
Yes. Next
episode is going to be summer book recommendations.
Yes, I can't wait.
We'd love to have a great we may reach out in the socials for this
Yes.
next one and have a little discussion and bring that onto the show.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what exactly we're going to do, but I think we're going to reach out.
And just direct message us or tweet
Yeah,
at us and
absolutely.
give us your summer book recommendations.
We'd love to talk
so
to you.
we can share them.
All right.
Yeah.
We
That's
done?
it.
We out?
All right.
See you guys.
Peace.
Thank you.